The ruins of the alien city stood silent under the red sky. Broken towers leaned against each other, walls covered in ash, and the air carried the smell of burned stone. The human soldier moved carefully through the rubble, his boots crunching on broken glass, his weapon ready in his hands. Every shadow looked like an enemy. Every sound felt like danger. He had been trained for war, but nothing prepared him for what he was about to hear. A small voice rose in the silence. Weak, trembling, almost carried away by the wind, the soldier froze. His heart beat faster. He turned his head, listening. The voice came again, softer this time, like the last breath of someone about to fade. "Please, human, pretend to be my daddy for just one day." The soldier blinked. He thought he had imagined it, but no. The words were real. They echoed from the dark corner of a shattered building, and they were filled with fear and loneliness. He lowered his weapon slowly and moved closer, each step careful. The sound of his boots echoed in the hollow street. The voice whispered again, more desperate this time. "Please, just one day." The soldier's chest tightened. He reached the doorway of the broken house. The inside was cold, the walls cracked, the ceiling open to the burning sky. And there in the corner he saw her, a small alien girl, her skin pale with dust, her big eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She was hugging her knees, her thin body shaking with hunger and cold. The soldier knelt down, his shadow falling over her. The girl flinched, pulling back as if she expected a strike. He spoke softly, his voice low. "I am not here to hurt you." The girl looked up, tears in her eyes, her lips trembling. She whispered again, "Pretend to be my daddy, please, just one day." Her words carried a kind of pain that cut deeper than any weapon. The soldier felt a sting in his heart. He had seen wounded comrades, he had seen dying enemies, but this was different. This was innocence left behind in a world of death. He asked gently, "Where is your family?" The girl lowered her head, silent, her shoulders shook. She did not answer. The soldier understood without words. They were gone. Maybe killed. Maybe abandoned. The war had taken everything from her. She had nothing left but that desperate wish, just for someone to be her father, even for one day. The soldier reached into his pack and pulled out a small piece of bread, dry but edible. He held it out to her. The girl's eyes widened. She hesitated, then reached with trembling fingers. She took the bread, holding it close like treasure. Then she ate. Small bites, careful bites, as if afraid it would vanish. The soldier watched her. Something heavy grew inside him, a feeling he had not known in years. The urge to protect, to keep safe, to give comfort. The street outside groaned as wind pushed through broken walls. The soldier looked over his shoulder. He knew it was not safe here. Patrols could return, hunters could track, but leaving the girl here was not an option. He sighed, then looked at her again. "I can stay for one day," he said. The girl's face lit up, her eyes shining even through the dirt. She crawled closer, wrapping her thin arms around his sleeve, as if she had finally found an anchor in the storm. The soldier shifted his pack and lifted her gently. She weighed almost nothing. Her head rested on his chest. Her small voice whispered again, softer now. "Daddy?" The soldier's throat tightened. He stepped out into the ruins carrying her, each step heavier than before, not because of the weight, but because of the choice he had made. This was not just a mission anymore. This was something deeper. The shadows of the ruined city stretched long, and somewhere in the distance a howl rose, a reminder that danger was never far. The soldier kept moving, holding the girl close. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but for today, for one single day, he would be what she needed most. He would be her father. The night stretched long across the ruins, and the soldier carried the small alien girl in his arms as he searched for shelter. The burning sky above had turned dark, but the fires of broken machines still glowed in the distance. The girl clung to him tightly, her eyes half closed from exhaustion, her thin frame trembling with fear. Yet her voice kept repeating in a whisper, that same plea. "Please, human, pretend to be my daddy for just one day." The soldier walked with steady steps, his boots striking against shattered stone. His heart caught between duty and something unfamiliar, a weight that felt more human than soldier. He found a hollow under the remains of a collapsed bridge and decided to rest there. The walls gave them cover and the silence of the night wrapped around them. He placed the girl gently on a blanket from his pack. She curled up like a fragile creature trying to disappear into herself. The soldier lit a small fire using scraps of wood he had gathered. The flicker of flame brought some warmth to the cold air, and the glow touched the girl's pale face. She watched him with wide eyes as if waiting for him to vanish at any moment. He handed her a small flask of water and she drank slowly, each sip, careful as though it was her last. He noticed the scars on her wrists, the dirt in her hair, the way her voice broke when she said, "Thank you." He asked her name, but she stayed silent, shaking her head. Her lips pressed together, she only whispered again, "Pretend to be my daddy." Please, just one day. The soldier felt the sting of her words deep inside his chest. He had never thought of himself as a father yet. Here was this child calling to him as if he was her only chance to live. The night grew colder and the soldier wrapped his cloak around her. The girl leaned against him, her small head resting on his arm for a moment. She seemed to breathe easier. He stared into the fire, his mind turning with questions. What had happened to her family? Why had they left her in this broken city? Who were the ones hunting her? And why did she believe a human soldier could be her father? Even for a single day. The flames crackled, but no answer came, only the sound of her soft breathing as she slipped into sleep. Suddenly, a noise outside broke the stillness. Heavy steps echoed through the ruins. The soldier froze, listening carefully. His instincts sharpened. The firelight flickered against the cracked walls. Shadows moved outside. He reached for his weapon. His eyes locked on the doorway. The girl stirred in her sleep, whispering, "Daddy." In a broken voice, he felt her fingers grip his sleeve tighter. Fear rippled through him, not for himself, but for her. If the enemy patrol discovered them, both would be lost. The soldier waited silent, breath shallow. The footsteps grew louder, then passed by, slowly fading into the distance. He let out a long breath and looked down at the girl still sleeping. He realized then that protecting her was no longer just about one day. She had no one else, no safe place to go, no food, no family. She had chosen him whether he understood it or not. In that moment, he was her father, even if the world outside refused to accept it. The night wore on, and the soldier stayed awake, watching over her. Each sound, each shadow kept him alert. He thought of his own past, of comrades who never returned, of promises broken by war he had always believed. He was alone in this endless fight. Yet now, with this fragile girl beside him, he felt something different. A reason to keep moving. Not just to survive, but to protect. When dawn finally touched the horizon, the girl opened her eyes, blinking at the light. She looked at him with a shy smile. Her lips formed the word "daddy" once more, but this time it sounded less like pretend and more like truth. The soldier met her gaze and nodded, his heart heavy, yet firm. He whispered back, "I will keep you safe, at least for today." He rose, gathering his pack and lifting her once more. The ruins stretched endlessly before them. Dangers waited in every shadow. But the bond between soldier and child had already been sealed by fear, by hope, and by a single word that changed everything. She called him daddy, and he chose to believe it. The morning came with a pale light spreading over the ruins. The soldier carried the alien girl close to his chest, while his eyes scanned the broken streets. Every step echoed in silence. Every corner looked like a trap. The girl rested her head against his shoulder, her small voice weak yet filled with trust as she whispered again, "Daddy." The word sent a strange warmth through him, though he tried to hide it behind his hardened face. He knew danger surrounded them like an invisible chain, waiting to close. They moved carefully along the cracked road. Shattered machines lay half buried in ash smoke still rising from distant craters. The soldier had seen destruction before, but never had it felt so heavy. Because now, it was not just his Life on the line, but hers too. She clung to him as if he was the last piece of safety in a world that wanted her gone. And in her eyes he saw both hope and terror. A fragile spark that could vanish with a single wrong step. Suddenly a sound cut through, the air metal boots striking the ground in rhythm. The soldier froze, pressing himself against the side of a collapsed wall. He peered around the edge and saw them, a patrol of alien hunters moving in formation, their armor shining dark, their weapons glowing faintly as they scanned the ruins, searching. He tightened his grip on the girl, her small body stiff with fear, her breath shallow against his chest. She whispered, "Daddy, please do not let them find me." And her trembling words pierced him like a blade. The patrol stopped nearby. One of them raised a strange device that emitted a sharp pulse. The soldier knew it was a tracker. It would detect movement, heat, maybe even the faint energy of life. He pulled the girl tighter against him, hiding, her face in his cloak. He slowed his breathing, his body still as stone, every muscle screaming for silence. The hunters looked around, their guttural voices filled the air, speaking words he could not understand, but their intent was clear. They were hunting. They would not stop until they found what they sought. The girl's small fingers dug into his arm, and he felt her tears soaking through the fabric. He lowered his head, whispering softly into her ear, "Stay quiet. I am here. I will not let them take you." She closed her eyes and nodded, trembling yet trusting. The seconds dragged like hours as the hunters stepped closer, their boots crunching the debris. One of them turned toward the wall where they hid his weapon, raised, glowing like fire. The soldier shifted his grip, ready to fight, ready to die if needed. Then a loud explosion roared from the distance. The hunters froze, turning toward the sound. Their leader barked a command, and in seconds the patrol moved away, heading toward the disturbance. The soldier exhaled deeply, relief flooding through him. He leaned back against the wall, his heart pounding like a drum. The girl lifted her head, her wide eyes searching his face. She whispered softly, "Daddy, you did not let them take me." The soldier looked at her and for the first time allowed himself a small nod of comfort. He knew, however, that this was only the beginning. The hunters would return. The city was full of ears and eyes, and he carried something they wanted. The girl was not just abandoned, she was targeted. There was a reason she had been left behind, and it was not chance. The soldier understood now that pretending for one day was no longer possible. This bond had become real. This mission had become life itself. Rose again, lifting her with steady arms, and began moving quickly through the alleys. He needed to find safe ground. He needed to find food, water, and a place where the hunters could not reach them. The girl leaned against him, whispering again, "Daddy, you are strong, Daddy, you will protect me." He felt her words burning into his soul like a vow he had never spoken, but now carried with every step as the day stretched on. Shadows followed them, whispers of danger grew louder. The soldier felt the weight of unseen eyes watching, always watching. But with each moment his resolve hardened. He was no longer just a soldier passing through ruins. He was a father in a world that wanted to steal his child, and he would fight until the last breath to keep her safe. The sun rose slowly across the broken horizon, painting the sky with shades of red and gold. The soldier and the small alien girl had taken refuge in a narrow hollow between fallen walls. The fire from the night before had turned to ash, and the cold still clung to the air. The soldier watched the girl stir awake, her eyes opening with a softness that seemed out of place in such a ruined world. She blinked at the light, then turned to him, her lips trembling with a shy smile, and she whispered, "Daddy." The word lingered in the morning air like a fragile promise. The soldier felt his heart tighten, though he kept his face calm. She sat up slowly, her small hands rubbing her tired eyes. Then she reached out and touched his arm as if to make sure he was still there. Her voice almost broke as she whispered again, "You are my daddy today." The soldier looked at her and nodded. He had not chosen this role yet. Here he was, carrying it in a world that had stripped away all innocence. He answered in a low voice, "Yes. Today I am your daddy." He gave her a piece of bread from his pack and watched her eat carefully, each bite slow and delicate, as though it was a gift too precious to rush. She smiled faintly, her cheeks smudged with dirt, her eyes glimmering with a light that had been absent before. For a moment she looked less like an abandoned child and more like a daughter safe under her father's watch. The soldier sat beside her silent, but inside he felt a storm. He had never been trained to be a father, never taught how to carry such fragile hope, yet he knew this role was shaping him in ways he could not deny. After eating, she tugged on his sleeve and whispered, "Daddy, can we walk outside? Can we see the sun?" The soldier hesitated. Danger lurked everywhere, but the look in her eyes was pleading and he could not say no. He rose and took her small hand in his rough fingers closing gently around hers. Together, they stepped out into the open light. The ruins stretched endlessly before them, towers, half-broken walls, leaning streets empty but full of echoes. The girl squeezed his hand tighter, her eyes wide as she looked around. For her it was not ruins, it was a playground of broken dreams. She pointed at a crumbled statue and whispered, "Daddy." "What was that?" The soldier paused, searching for an answer. He said softly, "It was something important long ago." Her small head nodded as if satisfied. Then she skipped forward, pulling him along her laughter. Faint, but real. For the first time he had heard her laugh. It was short. It was weak. Yet it was enough to pierce the silence of the dead city. The soldier followed her every step, alert, his eyes scanning for danger. Yet his heart warmed by her laughter. She turned back to him, her face glowing in the morning light. She said, "Daddy, thank you for today." The soldier stopped for a moment, his chest heavy with a feeling he had long buried. He realized then that he was no longer pretending, not truly. At least for her, this was real. For him, this was becoming real too. But peace never lasted long. A sudden roar echoed through the ruins, distant yet powerful. The girl froze, her small hand clutching his tighter. The soldier knew the sound. It was an enemy transport, machine built to search and capture. His eyes narrowed. He pulled her close, whispering, "Stay with me, do not let go." She nodded, fear in her eyes, but trust stronger than fear. Together they hurried back into the shadows, the soldier guiding her swiftly, his senses sharp. They hid inside the hollow again, the sound of engines growing nearer, dust falling from the ceiling with each vibration. The girl pressed herself against him, whispering again, "Daddy, please keep me safe." The soldier wrapped his arm around her, his voice steady. "I will never let them take you." His heart pounded with the weight of the vow, yet he meant every word. The engines faded into the distance, leaving silence once more. The girl looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. She whispered, "Daddy, I am happy today." The soldier brushed the dirt gently from her cheek, his voice low but certain, "I will make sure you are happy again tomorrow." Her small smile returned, fragile, yet filled with hope, and for the first time he believed his own words. The night had fallen again and the ruins lay under a blanket of shadows. The soldier and the alien girl sat close to a small fire hidden deep inside a broken tunnel. The faint glow lit their faces, the crackling sound breaking the silence. The girl held a piece of cloth like it was treasure, and her eyes stared into the flames. She whispered, "Daddy, will we be safe tonight?" Her voice was fragile, the kind of voice that carried both hope and fear. The soldier looked at her with steady eyes, his hand resting on his weapon. He answered softly, "We will be safe as long as I am here." The girl leaned against him, her head resting on his arm, her breathing slow, as if she wanted to believe his words completely. The soldier stared into the darkness. Beyond the fire, every shadow seemed alive. Every echo seemed like footsteps. He knew the enemy was searching. He had seen the patrols in the distance, their machines moving slowly, their lights sweeping the ruins like hungry eyes. The girl did not know, but he had already caught whispers through the static of his broken comm device. They were talking about her. They called her the forsaken child. They spoke of power hidden within her, blood power. They wanted to control or destroy the soldier, clenched his jaw. The truth burned inside him now. He understood why she had been left alone, abandoned yet hunted. She was not simply a lost girl. She was something more, something dangerous to those who feared innocence, something precious to those who knew love. He looked at her again. Her eyes half closed, her lips forming the word daddy in a sleepy whisper. She had no idea of the weight she carried. A sudden sound cut through the air. The soldier froze. The girl stirred awake. The fire flickered. As a draft of wind swept through the tunnel, then came the voices. Harsh guttural sounds in the alien tongue echoing closer. They were near, too near. The soldier pressed a finger to his lips, telling the girl to stay silent. He pulled her gently into the shadows behind him. His body shielded hers. Her small fingers clutched his sleeve, her eyes wide with terror. She whispered, "Daddy, please do not let them find me." The soldiers of the enemy moved past the entrance, their weapons glowing faint light, painting the stone walls. One of them paused, turning his head as if he sensed something. The soldier held his breath, his heart pounding. The girl buried her face against his chest, trembling. The enemy raised a scanner. A pulse of energy rolled through the tunnel. The soldier felt it shake his bones. He tightened his grip on the girl, whispering so softly it was almost breath. "I am here, you are safe. Trust me." The pulse faded, and for a long moment, silence followed. Then the enemy moved on their footsteps, fading into the ruins. The soldier exhaled slowly, relief flooding through him, but his mind was racing. If they had used trackers once, they would use them again. Time was running out. Staying here meant death. He had to move. He had to find a safe place. Far beyond the reach of patrols, he lifted the girl gently into his arms. Her small face pressed into his chest. Her voice muffled yet clear. "Daddy, I knew you would keep me safe." He carried her through the tunnels, the fire behind them fading into darkness. The ruins above loomed tall like broken giants, the moonlight shining through cracks in the walls. The soldier walked with firm steps, his eyes scanning, his ears alert, his mind sharp. The girl clung to him, her trust unshaken, her small voice whispering, "Thank you, Daddy." Her words gave him strength, more than any weapon, more than any armor. He felt the bond tightening like steel chains, unbreakable. When they finally reached the edge of the tunnels, the soldier paused. The city stretched before them, silent yet alive with unseen danger. He knew they would not stop hunting her. He knew his promise of just one day was already broken. He had chosen something greater. He looked down at her, her eyes shining with hope, her lips curved into the faintest smile. He whispered in return, "I will protect you, not just for today, but for every day as long as I breathe." The girl rested her head against him, content in his words, unaware of the storm waiting ahead, unaware of the enemy's gathering strength. The soldier carried her forward into the night, knowing each step drew them closer to danger, yet also closer to destiny. The night was heavy with silence as the soldier and the small alien girl moved along the ruins. The moon cast pale light over broken towers and shattered streets. The soldier walked with steady steps, his eyes scanning the shadows. Every sound felt dangerous, every movement a warning. The girl clung to his neck, her arms wrapped tight, her voice soft in his ear. "Daddy, are we close to safety?" He looked at her and answered with calm strength, "We will be safe as long as you are with me." They crossed a cracked bridge, stones falling into the dark water below. The soldier felt the air shift. A strange vibration ran through the ground. He froze listening, then he heard it. The growl of engines, the steady march of armored boots. The enemy was near, closer than ever. The girl trembled, her eyes wide with fear, whispering, "Daddy, they are coming." The soldier set her down gently behind a wall, his weapon ready. His body tense, he whispered, "Stay hidden no matter what happens. Stay quiet and trust me." The enemy arrived like a storm, shadows spilling across the street, their armor reflecting the moon, their weapons glowing with a deadly light. There were many more than before, hunters moving in formation, their eyes searching, their steps precise. The soldier knew this was no patrol. This was a hunt, and he was the target. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. He had one duty: to keep the girl alive. He stepped into the open, drawing their attention immediately. The enemy shouted, raising their weapons, beams of light tearing through the air. The soldier moved fast, rolling behind rubble, firing back his shots, sharp and controlled. Explosions lit the night, dust and stone flying. The girl pressed her hands over her ears. tears running down her cheeks as she whispered again and again, "Daddy, please come back. Do not leave me." The soldier fought with everything he had, his body burning, with strength, his eyes sharp like steel, but numbers pressed against him, each enemy pushing harder. Each step driving him back, he was struck across the arm, pain flashing, hot blood running. Yet he kept fighting his weapon, never lowering his stance, never breaking. He shouted with every shot, with every strike, his heart screaming louder than the battle itself. Not for glory, not for survival, but for her. An enemy rushed close, blade raised. The soldier blocked with his rifle, then struck hard, sending the figure crashing to the ground. Another blast came from the side. Searing pain tore across his chest, but he held firm, his breath heavy, his blood dripping. He staggered, but his eyes found the girl. She was peeking from the wall, her small face pale, her lips trembling. She cried out, "Daddy, no, please do not fall." Her voice broke something deep inside him. The soldier roared, pushing forward with fury, his strikes faster, his steps stronger, though his body weakened. He fought like a wall, unbreakable, his vision blurred, his chest burned. But the memory of her whisper gave him power. She had asked him to be her daddy for one day, but he knew now it was forever. He would fight till his last breath, because she needed him, because she had no one else. Finally, the last enemy staggered back, retreating into the ruins. The survivors pulled away, dragging their wounded, the sound of boots fading into silence. The battlefield lay broken, smoke rising, bodies scattered. The soldier dropped to one knee, his weapon heavy, his breath ragged, blood soaking through his uniform. The girl ran to him, her small arms wrapping around his neck, tears streaming. She cried, "Daddy, do not leave me, please, you promised." He placed a trembling hand on her back, his voice low but firm. "I am here, I will not leave you." She pressed her face into his chest, whispering again and again, "Daddy, you are my only one." The soldier felt the world spinning around him, yet inside he felt peace. He had kept her safe, at least for this night. As the moon rose higher, the soldier held the girl close, his strength fading but his resolve stronger than ever. The bond between them sealed in blood and in trust. He whispered one last vow into her ear, "As long as I breathe, you will never be alone." And she whispered back, "Daddy, forever." The dawn broke over the ruins, casting long beams of light across shattered stone and twisted steel. The soldier sat with his back against a wall, his chest heavy, his wounds deep. The small alien girl rested in his lap, her arms wrapped tightly around his neck, her face pressed into his shoulder. She whispered again and again, "Daddy, do not leave me." Her voice weak with fear, yet filled with desperate love. The soldier closed his eyes, breathing slowly, his strength fading, but his will strong. The city was quiet after the battle. Smoke drifted into the sky, carrying the scent of fire and blood. The soldier listened to the silence, broken only by the soft sound of the girl's breathing. He thought of his own past, of wars fought and brothers lost. He had never imagined himself as a father yet. Here he was, carrying a life in his arms, a fragile soul who called him daddy. Not as a game, not as a lie, but as her truth. The girl lifted her head, her eyes shining with tears. She looked at him and whispered, "Daddy, are you hurt?" He smiled faintly, though pain burned through his body. He answered softly, "I am fine because you are safe." She shook her head, pressing her small hand against the wound on his chest. She whispered, "Do not leave me. I cannot be alone." Again her voice cracked as if the words were tearing her apart. The soldier placed his hand over hers, his voice steady. "I will never leave you, not as long as I live." He knew the enemy would return stronger than before, yet in that moment he felt no fear, only purpose. He rose slowly, carrying her in his arms, each step heavy yet firm. He moved through the broken streets toward the edge of the ruins. The girl clung to him, whispering, "Daddy, where are we going?" He answered, "To a place where they cannot find you." She looked at him with hope in her eyes, her lips forming a small smile as she whispered, "Then, I will stay with you forever." As they walked, the sun climbed higher, painting the city in gold. The soldier saw memories in the light faces of his fallen comrades, voices of orders, commands, promises. But now he felt something stronger than duty. He felt the bond of father and child, unshakable, unbreakable. The girl looked around at the ruins, then back at him, whispering, "Daddy, everything is broken." The soldier held her tighter and whispered, "Then we will build something new together." They reached the edge of the city where broken fields stretched wide. The soldier stopped looking at the horizon, his body weak, but his resolve like iron. He set the girl down gently, her small hand gripping his fingers tightly. She looked up at him, her eyes wide, her voice trembling. "Daddy, will you always protect me?" He knelt before her, his eyes steady, his voice low but filled with promise. "I will protect you until my last breath, and even after that you will never be alone." The girl threw her arms around his neck, holding him with all the strength her small body could give. She whispered, "Daddy, forever." The soldier closed his eyes, feeling her warmth. Against him, his heart heavy yet full, he whispered back, "Forever, my daughter." The wind swept across the fields, carrying away the smoke of war. The soldier stood again, lifting her into his arms. He walked toward the horizon, his steps slow but steady. Behind them, the ruins crumbled, silent witnesses to the bond that had been forged in fire and blood. Ahead of them lay uncertainty, danger, and hardship. Yet also hope. The soldier no longer carried only a weapon, he carried a life. A child who had chosen him, and he had chosen her. The girl rested her head on his chest, her eyes closing, her lips whispering one last time, "Daddy, I love you." The soldier's throat tightened, but he answered with strength, "I love you too, my daughter, and I always will." Together they moved forward, leaving behind the ashes of a broken world, stepping into a future written not by war but by love.